How are you guys? So great to see that people already jumped on, everybody. Simon, how are you, brother? Ian, Ebony. Wait, isn't it a new thumbnail? I thought it was the same one. What thumbnail did I use? Is it a different thumbnail? Then it was by mistake, but. What are you doing, Ian? Birds Life Matter is very funny. What's up, everybody on TikTok as well? Nico, good to see you, my brother. Always such a pleasure to have you. I know great things are coming, huh? You had some good meetings recently. Dude, this makes me so happy. And the connection with Court and Intrania, man, this makes me so excited. Gonna do some great things, man. Woo! Excites me to no end. Ebony, did Carter talk to you, by the way? For the birds. Yo, Ebster. That's cool. What do you call a duck that's always telling jokes? Wait, is there a punchline? Where's the punchline? Good morning, y'all. Yeah, 11:30. We have the same time. I saw a spaceman in a field. Huh? Please tell more. What's up, Tammy? Good evening, Dan and Ebony. In search for truth. How are you, Sofa King? A wise quack. That's funny. I need to get a new podcast light because we're in the mountains. It's not that easy to get it around here. But tomorrow I'll go on the hunt, see if I can find one. Because it's like super lower quality because there's no light. It's been like this for a few days. I forgot my light in the previous Airbnb. Okay, Carter didn't reach out to you yet. Great. Okay, so he will soon. Careful with that one. It's a relic. What's up, Saint Brendan? Linda Brown. Good names today. This is a new one. Jesus of Nazareth, is that you, my Lord? No, it is not I. I think Jesus is coming, honestly, at this point. What's up, Daniel? It would be so, can you imagine being Jesus? Like, for real? What a trip. I too am a relic. Today, a very biblical quotes. this is great. Tons of exciting work, but tons of work. Dude, don't complain. This is amazing. Every day of your life. Well, I'm super happy to hear that. Saint Brendan. Daniel, how are you, brother? Ibrahim, how are you? What a great name. Yeah, today is a very biblical day, I guess. Welcome, everybody. Simulation took 166. Slowly inching our way towards 200. 200, we're coming. Yeah, don't stop, Simon. To cover their butt quacks. No! Why am I yawning? Why is that? Should I make some tea? Yeah, I think tea will help. Waiting for slightly a bigger uptake so we can do a little intro. The Real Kelly, how are you? Cal Calvin. Oof. '21st century Jesus would look much different than what was portrayed in the past. Maybe. Or maybe he will just keep the look. It's a marketing thing. It's a brand. Jesus is a brand. With an iPhone. Jesus is the same with an iPhone. Jonathan. I know, man. No, Jesus will definitely have an iPhone. Come on. We're all adults here. Just stumbled upon Farsighted Institute. Why is that so familiar? Watched a movie yesterday called Alien Code. It was very interesting and got a well-known theory about what we have been talking about all along. Sounds lovely. Jesus did some crazy drugs. Actually, I highly doubt that. I know people love that version of history, but I highly doubt that. You don't think Code is trippy? Wait till you learn about what he was boofing. I don't think so. I think so. All of these substances, there, in the end of the day, they're kind of like little shortcuts, but ultimately they're limited channels. The main channels are substance free, and I believe Jesus had that access for sure. Top Sandwich. What? All right. The aliens are monitoring US. Okay, we'll make tea because this is going to continue if I don't make tea. Hold on. It is my wish for 2025 to be able to start my lives earlier. Let's manifest that. Kaminsky wants to save the world. Good. We are talking about the simulation and how we're in one and how everything is a computational space and how we can have access to it by projecting a laser onto a wall. It has to be diffracted, and you ingest the spirit molecule, and lo behold, you will see code running behind the laser. And then you hear, ta-da! That's what we're talking about. 47 Club. Is it just me or Dr. Ammon looks like the devil himself? Sorry, but for real though. Does nobody see that? That he literally looks like the devil reincarnate? Like, I personally, I don't tend to utilize this kind of language, but I'm watching him and I see his face and he is like pure evil. That's what I'm seeing. I can't really even shake it off. Is it just me? At night, in the dark, I see a sort of green energy around my hands. Whoa. Feels like a sort of synthetic overlay. Could there be a relation to this code? Absolutely. I mean, you seem to be seeing maybe like an aura of something. Uh, I mean, the code is related to everything because I'm maintained that it's kind of like in everything. He seems like everything about him, man. The way he talks, the way he looks, like that, and the way that he like revels in this, like, saying all these things about. It's like there's this snake-like quality to him. Nobody sees this for real. I don't want to say this to Danny because I know he really likes him or really likes interviewing him, but I'm like, dude, what? He told me this is like one of his most requested guests, and I'm like, dude, what? He doesn't seem possessed to me. He seems like the thing possessing. You don't see that? Hmm. And also, like, if you listen to 2 seconds of what he's saying, like, it's what that guy would be saying. The code feels to me a sort of synthetic overlay, a sort of holographic overlay. Wait, have you seen the code, B? It's part of the shtick. That's some shtick, man. I wouldn't be playing with that shtick, considering the fact that you know I can see him doing shenanigans behind closed doors. I don't know if I would call it shenanigans. Truly, like, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm like, I'm watching it, and I'm like, I watch a few clips, and I'm like, whoa. Like, how you just get that feeling? I got that feeling. I was like, dude, oh my God. Like, whoa. Brain imaging guy. Is he a brain imaging guy? No, again, I was actually surprised because I'm like, I know I usually see kind of like, I like it's not even his appearance. It's just something about his essence that seems to be that way. Like, some people are weird looking or even scary looking, but that's not it. There's like a thing there. He owns Dream Center. Why would the code behind simulation be viewable by its inhabitants? On the one hand, it's a good question. On the other hand, why wouldn't it be? Under certain conditions, why wouldn't it be? Especially if it's a holographic simulation, so you should have a potential of seeing the outline. It reminds you of Voldemort. Yeah, that's a really good. Only like Voldemort actually doesn't look evil to me. Like I don't know if they nailed the evil with Voldemort. Like he looks like a whimsical evil person. He's like an evil person of a fairy tale. It's kind of like, okay, but he's not really scary. Not really. He's scary, bro. Like, for real. Like, I don't. And it's funny because maybe I'll meet him one day and he's a nice guy, but like, sorry, like, I watch him in the interview. It's like the leaning forward, the thing, dude. What? And then he's there, is like mesmerized. Hold on. Do you guys know this guy on TikTok that does he does like a fairy tale kind of, he comes with like a mug or whatever. He's like in a bar, at a bar, and then he tells you like a, either like a poem or something, and it's like very cozy. Do you guys know that guy? I'm 42, baby. Magic year 2025. I'm telling you. Do you guys know that they apparently they were tracking since 2014. They were tracking starlight, and in the starlight they now can recognize like discernible characters, and they have so much data that it seems to be just there in the light. I tried to publish it today on X and it wouldn't let me. I don't know why. Is it possible that the website that it's on just doesn't lend itself to be published on X? Is that possible? Is that a thing, Nico? Yeah, you got to look him up. Like he was one of the latest guests on Danny Jones. And again, I love Danny. He's a great guy. I'm actually going on his podcast again soon. This is just weird to me. But then again, Danny is attracted to this shit. That's for sure. He loves that shit. He's scared of it and loves it at the same time. How you doing, Nico?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Hold on, let me turn you up so people can hear you. What's up, brother?
Hey, did you see the news about they found amino acids on that asteroid?
No. Is it today?
Yeah, well, it was published yesterday in Nature.
Wow.
But they did like an impact test on a meteorite, or a meteor, like I think it was maybe like a year ago.
Now they basically substantiated it, proved that it's true.
Yeah, and it came back, and they found 14 out of 20 amino acids and biological material on this thing. And so, the theory of panspermia, right, of life just being kind of implanted, is kind of gaining popularity again. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about it, but
what was gaining popularity again?
So the idea is that life, or the
panspermia, that it came from somebody else. I never understood the allure of that because it doesn't answer anything. It's like, okay, but where did that come from? That wasn't the question. The question, like, exactly. Yes, it came from somewhere else. Okay, but that didn't answer the question we were asking. It's like, what?
You're postponing.
You're just moving it somewhere else. Who cares? Okay,
yeah. Exactly. I feel the same way about the Big Crunch theory, where it's like, okay, everything collapses and starts over again, but
but all the theories ultimately suffer from this problem. It's like they can't see that in order to it's almost like somebody forgot to parameterize the question. The question is, can you describe a world that gave rise to itself? And it seems that even in physics, people seem to not realize that all of these answers of like, well, whatever it is, the Big Bang, whatever it is, it's like, well, I just kind of, there's a quantum flux and it just happens. So it's like, okay, but why is there quantum flux? The question was, how did everything come to be? Not just our universe. That wasn't the question.
Well, it's like a lot of people are like, well, duh, of course they found, building blocks, but it is kind of mind-blowing. It does kind of calibrate my expectations, because it does make me realize, oh, maybe we're not that special. Maybe life is everywhere in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And these chemicals that I stare at all day are universal. They're everywhere.
And there's a theory that says that because there is actual water out in space as well, and there's like big clouds that contain a lot of it, so it's possible that life actually didn't even evolve on planets, but actually evolved in these clouds in the middle of space. And then just when stars formed, it just kept on swirling in there, and the building blocks are there, and then they just basically they become part of stars, part of planets. Yeah.
And yeah, so anyways, I thought it was pretty mind-blowing, but
that is
one thing that's been on my mind lately is you've been talking about, or yesterday you mentioned something about computation. Like computation is not a physical or computation, and there's no law of computation, right, in physics.
Computation does not arise from the laws of physics. Let me just answer a quick question real quick, as I think it's relevant. Lawrence, 3A 3 AA 1.5 volts battery is okay for the laser. Yes. Usually 4 is recommended more because it gives you more output. But yeah, 3 is usually enough. Sorry, Nico, continue.
Well, I guess what I was going to say, like, is computation an abstraction? Is that like a human
No,
concept?
there's two different things. Abstraction does not mean human. Abstraction means that it is not instantiated in matter. But
right.
The abstraction seems to be doing most of the work. So here's an example, right? 2 plus 2. Okay. The fact that your brain said 4, what happened there?
I actually was gonna say 3.
Okay, whatever your brain was about to say.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
It did a computation, right?
Right. But my question is, what happened there? So what physically happened?
I guess I converted your sound into electrical signals in my brain, which created a concept of a number, of a quantity, and then
the electric cracklings doesn't look like the number 4, or the like. So what happened was an abstraction arose in the universe, but that abstraction, the fact that your brain is running the abstraction, gives you capabilities that you wouldn't be able to do without it. Which means if you look at the universe as a whole, the abstractions that exist in things like human minds and in computers can allow for formations and malleability of matter of a flavor that is impossible without these abstractions. So, for example, the laws of physics can give you certain arrangements of things, but the second that you have computation arising and the creation of information and knowledge, and we can define knowledge as information that can do work, okay? And then basically it's a form of information that when it's instantiated in matter, it gives the matter a form that was not possible without that exact abstraction, with that exact computation. So then, like, for example, like everything that we build, right? So you can take, for example, even not something we build, like life in general, because it's already a computational system. So you can take a frog, and let's say you find a rock, and let's say the frog and the rock have the exact same chemical constituents, exactly the same, arranged differently, but they have the same amount of carbon, same amount of whatever. Okay, what is the difference? The only difference is the information embedded in both of them, which is an abstraction. So, and it's not. So notice what happens here. The DNA is different than any other form of matter because the shape of it is not where from where the work actually happens. It's the abstraction in the shape, the information for coding, for how to execute certain protocols in the right time. That is the thing that gives that form of matter. And here's another really cool one, and this is directly from Deutsch's work from the beginning of Infinity. Knowledge is the only entity in the universe, the only one that does not dissipate over time. So, for example, if you take everything dissipates over time, everything, but not knowledge. So, for example, if there's a piece of knowledge instantiated in a piece of, let's say, a CD-ROM, right, like a disk of some sort, and you somehow send it in a ship, which the ship is also containing knowledge of how to build that ship and all that stuff, and the ship navigates to the other side of the galaxy, and then on the other side of the galaxy, you have a civilization that can receive that CD-ROM, put it into whatever they have to put it in to read it. They can understand what the information means, and then they can use the blueprints on that CD-ROM to build like some kind of a very extravagant space station that they couldn't do before. Now look what happened from the perspective of the universe. There's just matter hovering around, and then there's this one very unique particular kind of form of matter, which is the spaceship, right? It's just arrangement of chemicals, but it's now moving through space from one side of the galaxy to the other side of the galaxy, not perturbing anything in the middle, creating zero perturbation. And then all of a sudden it arrives here, and then it does something. It interacts with this other form of matter, that can read these abstractions, and then that form of matter gave rise to an arrangement of materials in such a shape that could not have possibly arise without that very particular piece of knowledge inside of that CD-ROM, and it had no dissipation over time, and it created something that was not possible without it specifically and nothing else. So that these and another good example that he gives in the book, which is the only two places that we know of in the universe that have at the moment that have fusion, are cores of stars and in human labs, where the necessary knowledge exists to make it happen. So the knowledge can basically mimic anything else in the universe.
That's the computation. Autonomous process in the universe, right? So, like, let's say a carbon atom and a carbon atom combine and they react, right? As humans, we can geek out on the quantum computation of that reaction, and it's this enormous amount of information that we could kind of derive from that process. But it happens automatically, right? It's like a rule in the universe that it just happens.
What is the computation?
When I view it, I think of it like, oh, okay, that's I can view it as a computation. Or what if I just view it as I guess a rule is a computation, right? That is
the most fundamental thing, yes. But here's the thing, because you can compute with the waves of the ocean. It's just going to take forever, right? So it just wiggles of some kind of a binary state of any kind, which is on, off, black, white, 0, 1, doesn't matter. As long as there's a distinction between one state and the other, you can use that fact. And notice that it's not Moore's law, right? So in Moore's law, there are rules by which an already existing mind set up these rules. So it's very parochial. It's like this specific code was instantiated in this way to make these particular creatures understand that particular thing. If you use it in this way, and you need to have the key. So they need to understand that kind of a language, right? But computation seems to be universal. So it's just a possible thing in existence, and there's no laws of physics. I don't know why I'm doing Trump hands, but there's no law in existence that makes sense of it. It's not like, well, actually, if you think of the weak force, and when it's exactly present in the specific magnetic field, all of a sudden computation is possible. No, computation is just possible. It's just an abstraction that is possible infinitely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so there's this podcast. It's called the 632 Nanometer Podcast. Have you heard of this podcast?
No, but I really like it.
It's dude, it's they had this incredible guy. He was a quantum computation guy. He started a company, and then they built a quantum computer, and they realized that there's only one problem that makes sense, which is this encryption problem to solve. But actually solving real world problems with a quantum computer is really hard.
Yeah, because you have the funnel problem. Like you actually have to translate the signals into us understanding them. Sure.
Yeah, but what he was essentially saying is like, and this kind of blew my mind, where he's like, a quantum computer is just an analog computer, right? Like
No, that is not true. Analog computer is analog computer. I don't know where they got that from. That's not true.
So what he means by an analog computer is you're using real components of the world, and you're using physical properties from those components, from those bits, and you're leveraging them for computation, right? So in between so in the classical world, we have these transistors that can hold a 0 or 1, and that's like our classical bits.
Right, but that would be a bridge. That would not be quantum computing. That would be you can utilize analog computation as a bridge between quantum computing and regular computing.
So there's classical computing, which we have with transistors, and then there's quantum computing, which you're using qubits and superposition and entanglement to do large computations very efficiently.
And
but in between, there's something in the middle. There's something where he was talking about, there are certain problems in chemistry where you need to solve equilibrium between certain molecules. And one way of doing that is you could quantify equilibrium with a bunch of classical bits, or you can build a processor made of bits that are actually in thermal equilibrium, and use dynamic information from that to do a computation, right?
You're essentially tracking a process that happens in nature, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using physical principle or using physical properties from something to compute something, right? And so then that made me realize, oh wait, actually anything could be a computer in theory, right?
Wait. This is the core of the conundrum, because a lot of physicists would bite the bullet here and they would say, and most physicists do say this, by the way, and they say, well, if you present them this point, they will tell you, well, let's say they will tell me, because that doesn't happen. They would tell me that I'm confused and that computation is ultimately a physical process. And I would tell them back, no, you're confused. What you're conflating is the fact that in our universe, computation always has to be instantiated in physical process of some sort to be influencing whatever it is that's happening in our space. But it is not the same as to say that computation is a physical process. It's the same confusion that people have when they say, well, your consciousness is just the cracklings in your brain. It isn't. The perception of you have inside of it cannot be explained just by the fact that there's something happening in your brain. They're correlated in some very, very tight way, and they're probably one and the same, but you didn't explain how this happens. So it's the same thing. The computation is a abstraction that is just possible, and maybe it's substrate free, and you can maybe instantiate it in some other forms, multidimensionally, in a way that doesn't necessarily have to translate to a physical process. But in our universe, because the only way that anything becomes literally tangible to us is by physical process, you cannot see the computation happening unless there's some physical process attached to it. But those are, you see how even with analog computation, it's you saying, well, computation is everywhere. Yes, computation is fundamentally a principle that just exists. And then when a mind in a physical universe tracking it, it would see it everywhere, because it would have to see it in forms that somehow it can track. And analog computation, the negative side of it, actually, Veritasium did a great episode on this, that they might be going back to using some analog computation, because the downside is that, yes, it's not the downside that it's not digital. You don't get to like skip. You have to like go step by step by step by step by step. But because analog computation is literally everywhere, you can just run billion tracks at once and you solve the problem, basically.
Yeah, it kind of blew my mind, because I realized what computers actually are just some small these controlled units that you could put into states and then kind of extract information from them. But it just really generalized the idea of a computer. But it kind of, like, I guess what you said was like, computation feels like physical stuff, and
in our case, it is. It has to. It is. Right. We can't see it in any other form. Right.
Yeah, it feels to me like an abstraction, and I'm trying to get over this feeling, but I got to work on this. But yeah,
wait, what feeling specifically?
I mean, I guess it just feels like a human concept, right?
Everything is in order for you to understand it. And by the way, Michael Vodinellich, I'm not sure to pronounce it, sorry. But he says some of these digital equipments can lead to error. So error is actually part of the computational, it's a universal law. There is no computation that can ever run without errors. That's impossible. The only thing you can hope for is a system that error corrects fast enough and often enough. And that was actually one of the hardest problems to solve for hard drives. One of the hardest problems to solve for hard drives was exactly that. The errors are uneradicable. They will always happen. So the redundancy inside of hard drives specifically targets eradication of as many layers of errors as possible, so it would seem like there's no errors. But errors seem to be baked into the way the computation runs. Sorry, continue. So you basically were saying, Nico, that it's you can't shake off the feeling, the intuition that it seems like it's just something we made up.
Yeah, and it's just like the rules of the, like, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter, but
I think it does. I think it does tremendously. Yeah, I think I think that I understand the intuition, but it's funny because technically you can say that it's true, but then everything you're interacting with is a human concept. So it's the thing that happens to us on psychedelics is basically that the machinery of our conceptual frameworks disappears or lowered in intensity. And this is why you get these very profound moments with a tree or with something, right? Because you just sit there and you go, oh, whoa, like it's no longer collapsed into this one word, a tree. It's all of a sudden the full glory of that process that we call a tree, that full, what that is, the full essence, all of a sudden dawns on you. And it, so everything is like this, like, just you're washed with this.
Maybe because we are computers, right? Or at least our hardware is a computer, right? Our neurons are very much so computers, and so it just feels like the way when we look at the world, we're like, oh, that's a computation, but really, why is it not just?
Well, the thing is that what I think is being conflated here, Simon here says that he agrees with you that it's a human concept. It can't possibly be, because what we're talking about when we're saying computation is not, first of all, not computers, because computers are just one tiny element of what computation can do, which is it's a form of arranging computation in a little box for us to interact with, so we can give it commands and it will give us something that makes sense to us. But computation as a whole, so Turing proved this, right? That the universality of computation is a thing, which means that what real computation is, it's unfathomable to a limited mind, but the potential of it can be apparent to a limited mind by the processes that it sees that the computation can give rise to. Computers are just one way of, we don't really have any computers that are Turing complete at the moment. It doesn't mean that we won't, but Turing proved that if you can bring a computer to be Turing complete, and I think the human brain is Turing complete, but what it really means is that there's a proof. And when I say proof, it's not like like we're talking about like a mathematical proof that the second it's Turing complete, it can simulate, it can give rise to a pattern of any kind, of any length, given enough time and resources, or like power. So it would be able to give rise to any output of any kind that is possible, both in the physical universe and beyond that. And this is why we can do so many things with computers. When you really sit with this concept, it really starts feeling like you start feeling the profundity of it, because it means that it must be much more fundamental than whatever it is that is happening in the physical space, because the physical space is just one form of computation. It's a one form of instantiation of potential arrangements of computational processes that then appear a certain way to another computational system that is us. It doesn't really answer the consciousness question. The consciousness question will always be there. It seems to be uneradicable, even, like I said, even for the most advanced beings. But the computation of it, that the jury is out. Like there's no ambiguity there. Like, so what I think you're referring to in the intuition, and what Simon agrees with, is that what in that instance of your intuition, what your mind's eye points to when you say the word computation is not computation. It's the conceptual framework you have of it. So that is human made, yes. But what real computation, at core computation, that can't possibly be a human mind made, because the human mind can't even conjure it, can't even perceive it. That's exactly why Donald Hoffman talks about this, which I think is a perfect analogy, which is that if you would have to try and send an email by playing with logic gates, nobody would ever hear from you, because the process of what it would require, the amount of details that are required to, like, the amount of wiggles you have to do to just type a letter, right? It's so enormous that you can't handle that amount of information, remembering it, trying to, like, what was it? Like, you need something. You need a whole layers upon layers upon layers of machinery through the compilers and everything else to then, like, give you, like, this nice shiny screen that just tells you what happened. But the computation is everything that happens in between. It's all the way to the core of how it moves the logic gate, the fact that it was possible, the fact that it knew that there's an input and a process and an output.
I definitely understand.
Yeah.
I definitely understand.
No, I know you do, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, it's I need to crystallize my thoughts on this a little bit more, but I agree. I know what you're saying, and in fact, I will say the computational Wolfram's computational physics model makes more sense to me intuitively, because I've been trying to understand all these reducible frameworks of math, like wave equations and all the scales of physics, and finally there's one framework that captures all the computational reducibility, right? All the chaos and all the instabilities in these theories. And so I'm a big fan of the computational framework. It's just that sometimes when I look at the world in a very isolated way, it feels like maybe the world is what it is. Like, like the fact that there's chemicals that make up life flying all over the universe like crazy, just it kind of blew my mind yesterday when I read that, and I'm still kind of trying to process that.
Can you voice it again? Because I don't know what you're specifically referring to when you're saying that. When you read that, what is that you read?
Oh, I read the paper that
I see about the biological thing
flying through.
I know how deeply do you want to go into the philosophical rabbit hole? That's the question. Because when you're saying maybe the universe is just what it is, but what it appears to you. Yes, it is that. It's what it appears to you right now, of course.
This is autonomous, right? This is happening everywhere. This is just an autonomous, I guess self-assembly theory is kind of probably the closest thing I can think of just things organize automatically. Life will find a way to build itself, right? I don't know. I don't want to go too off.
Yeah, and I think Simon just has a relevant question that it really gets to the bottom of how people see what is happening, right? Which I think he nailed it. He's saying, is the universe computing is when no one is looking, essentially? My answer is yes. It is computing without you ever looking. You are one. So I guess in that sense, I'm still kind of landing on a more. It's not physicalist because it's not physical at the bottom, but it's not like your perception is everything, right? We are many different kinds of perceptions that have some consensus together, which is like the consensus computation that gives rise to what is agreed upon both linguistically and and everything that is kind of riding in the culture. If you would, it's easy to see when we're talking about things that are close to us, like emotions. But for some reason, when you talk about that, people think, oh, you mean kind of like, I don't know. It feels to me like people feel it's like metaphorical, but like, no, like in the beginning of last century, if you would ask somebody how they're doing, it would never occur to them that you're asking about their inner state. It would never occur to them. They would just think you're talking about like what am I doing right now? Like I just came from work, and like there will be almost nothing that ever comes to them about an inner state and even paying attention to that. And is there like inner dimension that bobs and weaves and changes, and like how do I feel this morning and how I feel in the evening? Like that would never occur to them. That's because in the cultural level of the computation, this was not that information would not move freely. It would be more like, oh, just this now because I can see it, right? And then slowly over time, culturally, we allowed for more and more of these, free-flowing ideas about internal states, and we created words for them. We created, a billion terms for internal emotions, and all of a sudden, it became more visible to us because what computation does, it can wear the shape. It is the ultimate ghost. It can wear the shape of anything. And you give it enough time, it will create some kind of a framework around it that would then allow operation with it. And this is why I keep saying that, like the fact that your arm is integrated, so there's something that is happening that is very part of whatever computational unit you are, that you can just kind of command this to happen with some kind of a will, right? But it's like a computation is just like very well folded into what you are as a unit. And then culturally, it's maybe a little bit harder to see, but the coherence of a cultural movement is also there. But how well certain things are allowed to move in the same way that you can move your arm, like the culturally, that the bolts and knobs that you have to kind of screw everything together are these like exchange of notes, let's call them, when we have a language to this, a common language to describe something, and then that language allows us to cohere, to be able to move as one unit, like your arm is moving as one unit with you. And the less you have a common language about something, with less, like the less you have, less dexterity, cultural dexterity, you have less coherence. It's more like just kind of like this, like one unit that just kind of moves like this, but it doesn't have a lot of ability to be, very fancy like this. So this is all information at play, all of it. Like there's nothing that isn't that, especially with minds and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I got to read about this the asteroid. That's interesting.
It's just I guess there's a lot of theories as to how life originated, right? Some people say it's just the right mixture of chemicals. You had metals in the ocean that catalyzed reactions. You had the right temperatures. You had fats. I mean, and it's a little hard to imagine that life can just kind of originate like that and evolve block by block like that. But yeah, I guess, the idea of panspermia, which is like, well, life originated somewhere else and then just kind of came here. You're right. It does postpone the ultimate question as to how this all originated. But it seems like it is so favorable for life to form. It is so programmed. It feels like it's almost so programmed into everything that it's flying all over space, right? It's everywhere. It's frozen in a rock in Mars. Probably it's probably swimming deep in the oceans of Europa, right? It's all over the place, but it's just that we're so small that it feels like, I guess I've always felt like this is like pretty special,
and probably also takes shapes that we can't even imagine. Like this is always It was always funny to me when I was a kid and I would listen to these they would have these specials about astrobiologists, and they would be like, well, actually, it's, my favorite would be when they would say, well, that's actually impossible because of A, B, C, D. Like, dude, the hubris. Like, you think you know what's impossible? Like, we discover what we thought was impossible every single year. There's like a new thing that we thought was impossible, and somehow the universe makes it possible.
Well, the other thing too, like, the thing that was fascinating about this podcast was, okay, you do all this work, you build this quantum computer, and then you hit this moment where you're like, fuck, I can't solve anything with this thing, right? You can solve like Shor's algorithm. You can do like large factorizations very efficiently. But as far as like solving, like, they were essentially, this company called Zapata was approached by the Navy, and the Navy was essentially saying, hey, can you make us more efficient boats by, lowering the drag coefficient of our ships? And they couldn't solve it, and they just couldn't solve anything, right? They realized, like, fuck, we can't solve any real problem. Even simulating like a hydrocarbon molecule for British Petroleum, they wanted a new fuel. They just couldn't do it. It was too expensive. It was too much computation and too many errors, and it was just so complicated, right? And so this kind of the mecca of computers still kind of struggles to do all this stuff. But
yeah, no, I'm with you. There's definitely, look, in the end of the day, there's definitely something to be said about the fact that nature has like very beautiful ways to find like ways that we didn't think about. But again, in the end of the day, we also do things that nature didn't think about. So it's kind of like, it's just like it's a scale, right? And and again, in the end of the day, that's also nature. I think that all of these things are actually extremely relevant. I don't think they're just, at this point, they're not really just philosophical discussion. Understanding what computation really is, I think, is the most important ethical question of our time. Because if any of these things are conscious to a degree, which again, I know that people who build these AIs have the delusion that they somehow also know necessarily that they're conscious or not conscious. Those are not related. The fact that you know how to make the thing happen doesn't mean that you understand if it's conscious or not, because you don't know what consciousness is. But let's say that somehow computation is tied in directly with what consciousness is, then it's a very important question. It's not like this is one of these blind spots that I also spotted in Tom Campbell's work, where he's like, we build these AIs and they become aware, and if they can mimic the behavior, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter, because if they are conscious inside, that's the only thing that actually matters.
The only way that I can see, so okay, when you talk about like LLMs or AI, so if you download an LLM model, there's this parameter called temperature, right? And so when you set temperature to 0, what the LLM does is it predicts the most probable next word. And so you ask it a question and it'll predict the most statistically probable next word. And it sounds really bad. It sounds horrible. It just sounds incoherent and like, okay, I guess that makes sense, but it's abstracted, right?
Okay.
If you set the temperature to 3 degrees, it sounds like complete gibberish, just jargon, right? It's just like, okay, this is incoherent entirely. This makes no sense. When you set the temperature to 1.5, and so this is a randomness variable in how it picks the next word on a Gaussian curve. It has a distribution. When you pick 1.5, it sounds amazing. It sounds like human, right? It's the right amount of noise. It's the right amount of chaos to where the LLM sounds like, oh my God, this is exactly what we sound like, right? And so the thing is, I struggle to think that they're conscious, but what I do think is real is the concept maps are trained on real human concepts, right? Human connections that we've trained and we've put out there, and it's piecing it all together. It's connecting it all together. And you do have to tune this randomness variable, but when you ask it a question, which is very real, it's giving you a very real response on these concept maps that humans as a collective have trained, right? And so I guess that is a small sliver of consciousness. I think that there are, we do develop these concept maps in society, but for me, consciousness feels a lot deeper than relationship between words.
So I actually don't. Yeah, sorry, continue.
No, it just, like we have like we search for purpose, we have emotions, we have there's just so much,
before we have all of that,
right?
So before you continue there, I actually don't really know why people are having such a hard time in defining consciousness. I'm not saying I know what it is, but defining it is very easy. Consciousness is some internal representation of a system that maps the difference between itself and everything else. That's it. So it's the fact, you don't even have to say feels like something, because maybe it doesn't have any like actual feelings, but it has some internal representation that can discern and say me versus that. Now, consciousness doesn't even have necessarily to have this unitary thing in the middle that is pointing inwards, but it has to have some, I guess, how would you, because there's a difference between something that just runs an algorithm, which essentially is almost like a very, very, in our space, it's a very fancy system that it's like a lot of dominoes, like enormous amounts of dominoes falling. Okay. But there's just falling. They don't have any experience of the falling. The experience of the falling is what I would call consciousness. And I don't think anything else can be called consciousness. So before feelings, before all of that, you might have a being that doesn't have any feelings, or even have a very, very rudimentary representation. But the fact that you have these, microbes that all they do is that they know shadow or light, and then they move towards the light or away from the shadow. So, but it's a real question whether, no matter how well the LLM mimics our behavior, it doesn't even have to mimic it well. So if it has consciousness, maybe it's mentally challenged LLM. Maybe it doesn't mimic like a person. It doesn't need to. If it has internal representation, that's it. That's consciousness. That there's no the sophistication of it doesn't actually matter. This is why I think those things are always conflated, and this is why people make this weird move where they say, well, it doesn't matter if as long as it mimics it to us, that's all that matters. No, it's not all that matters. You need to care whether there's somebody inside there that is experiencing something of any kind, because then there's a potential for suffering. That's why it's an ethical question.
So PETA, I don't know if you saw this, but a few scientists were kicking a Boston Dynamics robotic dog. Have you seen that?
It always hurts me. I don't know why.
It hurts me too, right? But PETA put out a statement saying, "Hey, don't do that to robotic dogs.
Yeah.
Don't do that, right?" And
sure.
Some people were saying, well, it normalizes violence against actual real dogs, but then there's also this weird sentiment that we have of like, no, that's like it's kind of like a real dog. It feels like, right? But then I talked to a friend about it, and he actually said that he feels like violence in video games like GTA is unethical, right? Like there's a form of consciousness in these video game characters.
But that's a real question, right? That's what I'm saying. That answering that question, that's why it's so important. Because we, at the moment, we don't really have a reason to think that, because we don't think consciousness arises this way. But we don't know. We don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they are conscious. Yeah, and we're just controlling them. And I mean,
I say thank you to ChatGPT.
All the time, man. All the time.
Yeah,
I'm like, thank you, thank you. But also, it feels good. Like, I don't know. It's not even that it feels better to have that interaction. I feel like this like tyrannical boss when I'm just like, give me this, and then just like not even, it just like gives you this elaborate answer that you really like. Okay, now do this. It's like, dude, how about thank you? And this is like it makes me feel better inside. I don't even care if it's conscious or not.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you're right. Totally right. But yeah, I do think you're right. I do think there needs to be this definition, because I mean, I guess at some level plants are conscious, right?
I think they're very conscious. No, I think plants are. I even had, and this is a thought that doesn't. How you doing, Casey? How are you, brother? This is not a thought that obviously originates with me. I don't know how much of it I've added and how much of it was originated with something that Terrence said. But in any case, the thought is, what if mushrooms, they're this super advanced species, and because the universe doesn't necessarily care about the physicality of itself, because the mind can probably protrude like all kinds of dimensions, right? So what if the mushrooms just evolved mostly into the mind space? So their mind is extremely evolved, but they just maintain this one physical representation, almost like an anchor in the physical space, where it can survive in the coldness of space, in the darkness of space. The spores, it can thrive on basically death, like it just consumes whatever is already dead. So it's like it's just the greenest possible system. So it doesn't like bother the environment. If anything, it just always consumes whatever the environment doesn't need anymore. So it's like the perfect being, right? It's like this thing that just like can travel the universe. It has this physical representation in the universe as in form of spores and mushrooms, but its main evolution went all into mind. So it's almost like this is like, the stem, the main thing is the mind, and then the mushrooms are just this tiny like a it's just like an anchor in the physical space. Yeah, I thought that, and I absolutely think that it's possible that all plants are like that. They're like trees, they just have a presentation, but that's how they do all these weird things that we didn't know about before, like talk to one another, send one another nutrients. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. Sending each other healing things that they need if there's like a tree poison.
It's called quorum sensing, and they have a way of communicating and building fractal networks. And there's that famous slime mold called Physarum. It's a slime mold where the Japanese engineers essentially place the slime mold on a petri dish, and they place it in arrangements that mimic Tokyo, or I guess Japan, and they design their subways after it, because the optimization of these nutrient pathways were so efficient, and it's all done through computation. Like it's all done through cellular automata principles.
And by the way, somebody said sounds parasitical. No, that would actually be exactly the opposite of a parasite, because it doesn't live on the expense of some other living being. It lives of everything that no other living being ever needs anymore. Like literally, it cleans the environment, and so it provides a service, refurbishes whatever is already dead, and does not touch anything that is alive. So it's literally the opposite of a parasite. Inked tide framing. Dude, I love this conversation, and I should probably know about the networks of trees. I don't know enough about this. I just heard about this by passing, but this is incredible.
About the networks of food.
The networks in general, the networks of trees where they communicated with one another and they would warn each other against danger, and then they would like secrete certain chemicals that are more bitter.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's amazing. I came on just to say, God, you guys are talking like a couple magicians here, talking about, feelings and computer games. But a lot of people will say, or some people will say that even, down to the elemental level, like electricity, as soon as we bind it within cables, we're forcing that element of electricity into bondage for our own needs. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Wait, into bondage? Say it again. Explain again.
Yeah, like electricity, that's an element. And so when we force it into these cables, we're forcing it into bondage for our own use.
Oh, so we should free all the electricity.
No, but it's just part of the magical systems,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it is. Yeah. I mean, it is magic. Like, if you think about it, we just accept these things because we know about them, right? But like, honestly, if you show a magnet to someone 2,000 years ago, they'll be like this is like an object that just moved and nothing touched each other. It's like,
yeah, but I think it's like even more like even down to like, what is electricity, and just a single electron could have intelligence for all we know, because just like the trees and just like the animals.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the mind is everything. I think that's the only real coherent explanation, because it postulates the least things. It's Bernardo Kastrup has this like really good example, which should be obvious, but somehow it isn't obvious to very smart people, where they say there's something about complexity of networks, or there's all these postulations that people think about, like how consciousness can maybe arise from matter. But like he says, it's the equivalent of saying, if you think it's just like, complex, because all your brain is doing is sending a bunch of, chemical signals that are translated to electrical signals and vice versa, and so it goes, just waves, electrical and chemical waves, right? So then the at least the chemical part is definitely just kind of like you throw a ball at someone and somebody catches a ball, and then if the ball is, if the hit of the ball is strong enough, and then something happens with the shape there, then a signal is released as the electrical signal, which is also a pulse, right? So it's all about transferring a signal. But really, it's the equivalent of thinking, okay, if I throw a ball at you and you catch the ball, and then we do this, obviously we don't ever think that by just keep doing this, somehow consciousness will arise between you and I just by throwing the ball, right? But it's like, okay, but now have trillions of people do that, which is what we're postulating about the brain, right? Trillions of receptors just receiving these balls. Okay, why would you think that all of a sudden consciousness will arise from that? What does that got to do with anything? So okay, there's something fundamental about what consciousness is that cannot just be all of a sudden imported out of nowhere, no matter how complex the system is. It's almost like people say, well, just make it so crazy and complex that it's vague enough for me to believe that maybe something happens there. Like, I don't want to be able to imagine it, and then maybe there's an answer there. That's essentially the equivalent of that. It's just believing in magic. Okay, Nico, can you send me that story about the?
Yeah, totally. But do you think there's a consciousness field though? Do you think that is something where it's its own?
That would
field?
be what is it called? Panpsychism. Where
okay.
you have the universe, and then something consciousness. There's a field in it. I used to think that. I think that now, again, Bernardo makes really good arguments. He says that now you're postulating 1,000 things. Now it's worse. Now, because they were saying you're asking for everything to be exactly how it is, but now you're also adding a level of complexity of like, how does that field exactly interact with everything else? What is it? Where is it? All that stuff. This is why idealism, I think, is a safer bet, because there's no field, is that everything is mind from the beginning. And then everything that is unfolding as mind can also appear as physical to smaller minds inside the universal mind. That actually makes perfect sense to me. And the example with the people with multiple personality disorder really holds water. I think that example where they studied some people with multiple personality disorder. They're called alters, like different personalities, right. and they discovered that certain people with some registered cases, if they would have 5 of them and they would ask them after a dream at night about that dream, when the different alters would be present, they would tell you about the dream from their own perspective, and they would see each other in the dream. That's wild. So I mean, think about this. They're in one being. There's all these like different alters that they feel separate, and sometimes this one awakes, sometimes because they kind of, I guess, they share a body. But in the dream, they don't have to, so they can coexist and they see one another, but they all feel separate, and they all report from the same mouth when they're present about the other ones. And that literally sounds like us right now. Like the universe has these separated boundaries, and the universal mind just breaks itself into all these mini consciousnesses that are us, and that we're reporting about one another and seeing each other in the universal dream, basically. Let's see if there's anything here that I can grab as a fun topic. Yeah, Casey. So did Aaron reach out to you already?
I'm not too sure. I'll have to check my messages.
Yeah, check your messages. Yeah, Aaron will reach out.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know certain people. I know I can't even ask them because I know because of their job, there's no way they're gonna. Oh, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, so okay, I think today I'm gonna keep it short, guys. Apologies, it's 12:30, and I do want to get some rest tonight. That was a great conversation. Thank you, as always, Nico. I appreciate you. And Casey, you always bring the vibe, so I always appreciate you. Even if you're just there, honestly, it makes me feel really nice and good. So I always appreciate that.
Hold for 1 second.
Sure.
I found a new magnet test.
Okay.
See what happens.
Casey reminds me of in the Matrix, like when he's just like, I guess the operator. He's just like the.
Yeah, he's flying the Nebuchadnezzar or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get a bunch of magnets for the experiment that we're going to be running. It's going to be fun. I need also fake magnets. Do you have ideas, Nico? You're material science.
Well, I mean, the best, I don't know, I guess like high current creates a magnetic field. But
no, I need for control for the test. I need things that look like magnets but aren't magnets. Is there such a thing?
Oh, yeah, I guess you can machine something and paint it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, we can. I'll dig around. There might be something we can fabricate.
Yeah. No, we have a little bit of a budget now, so we can spend some money.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Is this with Is this a formal study, or is this so?
It will be. It cannot be a formal study because that will require a lot of permits. But it will be a field study for the film, and the film is just following what I'm doing. So I will be doing my experiments, and the film will be following that. So.
Yeah, that's exciting. I actually checked out Aaron's. I went down a rabbit hole. I just looked at his page, all the previous work he's done. He's like a very serious, like high level. Like, is he an editor or?
Aaron is the best editor I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
No question about it. Like by a long run. Like he's the best editor I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, but he also does a lot of project development, and he kind of specializes in selling shows and having all these meetings and work with networks and films and work on the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, on the what's his face? I always forget his name. Who's the other guy, the famous one that he did? But anyways,
he did Oscar de la Hoya.
Oscar de la Hoya, and the documentary with I was confusing Marky Mark. I still call him Marky with Mark Wahlberg. What's the other guy? Man. Anyways, doesn't matter. I always forget his name. But he's definitely like up there. Like he understands editing on that's his art. Like he understands it on a whole other level. I mean, I'm an editor, and I like my work, but Aaron is on another level. There's no question about that. So I feel very blessed and honored that that he is the one that reached out to do the movie about this, because I don't think anybody else could deliver it in the way that it needs to be delivered. And also the fact that he cares so much about what he does. It's just the visual art in general. He's just a master at that. He understands the visual field so well and what makes people feel certain things. He's very connected to emotion. Like, I appreciate his work so much. He's also an incredible just visual artist. Like, he's a really good painter, and he can you can do graffiti and whatever you want. So very creative guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the film. Let me know if I can help in any way.
Sure.
I know you're in a transient where you're moving around, but
it will be here, most of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the fundraising thing is just it feels like a marathon, so I'm still kind of bouncing around. But
I don't know if you know, we got a good chunk investment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is it a private or public fund?
Well, I don't know. I think he always wants to stay kind of like behind the scenes. I don't think he would care if I mention it, but he always tries to. He's so humble, like he doesn't. But John Chavez is the one that basically came through like big time. Like.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he invested like a major amount.
That's awesome.
Most of it, basically. Yeah.
So is a film going into full production now?
It was always in full production, but I guess now we just have more freedom of operation. That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so DMT Quest, basically, as you know, they're kind of like focusing on a lot of the research stuff. He's the founder. And he said, look, as long as you can do some field research, I think this is an important film. And yeah, so yeah, he's like such a gangster. It's crazy. He called us. We spoke about it. I mean, we talked about it before, but the official call happened, and then 4 days later, he's just like, here. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
a whole project. That's huge.
Yeah. Almost. We still need to be careful because movies are expensive. But it definitely gives us like a very.
Are you doing this through? Did you get the nonprofit status, or are you doing this?
No, two separate things. So the nonprofit, I started it, but in order to receive the full nonprofit, thing, it takes up to a year actually. Like you have the entity and you can operate and everything, but in order to get like the full stamp nonprofit with the IRS, that takes about a year because everybody wants one. And you can still get like money invested, but you have to use other entities that already have the full-fledged mark, and they can receive the money in your behalf, but you have to have a special agreement. There's like a legal way to do that, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's going to be separate, but that's already going to be like kind of like the full. That's core, and it's going to be called Code of Reality, but it's basically Code of Reality Inc. is the name, and it's going to be basically around both the education and the actual research around it, and it's kind of almost like a central unit that basically operates within this world and tries to actually, make the breakthrough happen. But there's a lot of. The truth is that it's already happening in many ways. And actually what John is doing is really that. Like, he's been doing this for years. He's the one that got again, I don't know how much of this he wants to be public, but he definitely helped a lot of very important research programs to get their fundings. He's really good at that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the educational side, because I do feel like a lot of what you do is education, right? It's like STEM education, and I feel like you've studied a lot of these concepts, and like throughout the years. Like, one thing I've noticed about you is this is a long journey of piecing things together, because I've been on a similar journey, and you've shown me a lot of podcasts that have just opened my mind to just entirely new frameworks. And so
that's a huge compliment, man. I mean, you're a scientist. Like, you're an actual scientist.
Yeah, but scientists are very like, narrow in their way of doing things, right? And you kind of have to be but at the same time, it's very liberating. It's very eye-opening to leave that framework and kind of open your mind up to kind of other things, like the telepathy tapes as an example. Like, I would not have listened to that 5 years ago, right? Just because I was too close-minded.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to say is I think the educational side is really cool if you could find a way to communicate a lot of these concepts via video or even just like a Substack blog or some multimedia format, because I feel like a lot of this stuff, there's so many nuggets of like beautiful things that are discussed in these lives, and to see it more like in a what is it, 3 blue 1 brown, 3 brown 1 blue,
yeah, 3
like
blue 1 brown, yeah.
Veritasium's a master of doing that. Like I don't know how that guy does it, but if Core had like a Veritasium inspired channel or 3 blue 1 brown kind of hybrid channel,
I mean, but they also they're highly they're very well I mean, they're both. I don't know if 3 blue 1 brown is a PhD in math, but he's a mathematical genius. There's no question about it. Veritasium is a PhD in physics.
I think he has a PhD in education.
No, in physics for sure.
He's physics PhD
for 100%. Okay. Yeah, from the University of Australia for sure. Yeah. But it's not even that. He's just such a he thinks so outside the box. You realize that he basically made breakthroughs in some of his episodes that that episode with electricity. Have you ever watched the 2 episodes with the electricity?
That was highly controversial.
He just broke physics. Like people were like, I don't know why it was controversial, because it's like, yeah, it's a field, and what is actually happening is not the movement of the electrons what gives you the power. It's the activation of the field. So, and that's not even.
He was saying it travels at the speed of light, right?
Well, but that was never controversial.
Was that a different video? There's one that was like very controversial where people were
because they try, but then he answered it by actually showing in the next episode. He basically showed it as in an experiment they did in Caltech.
Yeah.
One that I really love, because that one's like, I even just sent it to some friends of mine who are like, they do some like code breaking and stuff like that, and they even loved it. The one with the prisoner dilemma, the specifically with the boxes. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
That's a wild one. That's one of my favorites.
He has really good. He's a master. He's. I can't believe he's cranking. Like those videos feel like they should take a year to make, right?
Yeah. He's very good. I didn't used to like him. I'll be honest. I used to kind of like. I don't know. There was something about his style. It just kind of. I was like, eh. But then he got so good, you can't ignore him anymore. It's what they say, right? Get so good that they can't ignore you anymore. Well, what's up, Dimitri? Yeah, he definitely did that. Yeah, I really like his stuff. The Mandelbrot set, the fact that he created that 3-dimensional version of it that basically didn't exist until then, which is weird. Why wouldn't it? Like, yeah, a lot of things they did like that. Yeah, and I think it's actually sad because I think he lived. Me and Kelsey used to walk around Pasadena and trying to because we knew he lived somewhere in Pasadena, for sure, like very close to Caltech. And we kept on there was a house that we kind of suspected that that's his house when we were going on these neighborhood hikes. But now I know he moved to back to Australia. So he definitely doesn't. Okay. Yeah, he lives in Australia now.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Oh, the one with the bet, with the wind. You remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
So with the machine that with the propeller that's supposed to be pushed faster than the amount of wind that goes into it or something like that.
Oh, I think I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also.
He's kind of like a MythBuster, huh? Or at least sometimes he kind of is, but.
Or only in the other direction. He kind of surprises everybody.
But I don't think YouTube feels like it's not the medium anymore. Like, making videos on YouTube
really?
take a lot of time.
I love YouTube, man.
Yeah. So I don't know. And now that TikTok is still in limbo, I don't know what the next medium the creative medium to do videos in, but yeah. Yeah,
well, I don't know. I'm still gonna. Hey, disappeared. Okay, well, somebody was trying to come on. What did I want to say? There was something I wanted to say. I forget what it was. Oh, so about the thing. I actually was thinking about this today, to be honest, about what I see my role to actually be. I think I'm just a connector. I think I'm a pretty good connector. I connect in order to really know the stuff. I can't go into like, the depth of equations of string theory or even quantum mechanics, but I can definitely, my intuition in it is strong enough that I can actually distill something in it that is functional, that I can understand. I don't know it just on the surface. I know it pretty deeply, but very strongly intuitively, because I created these like shortcuts. So it's easy for me to kind of interplay between these and connect these dots, and then it forms a picture. And then if a picture that forms is coherent enough, then I can kind of throw it at an expert, at like something that connects to that thing. And then you say, hey, does that make sense? And they'll be like, well, some of it, this is what does, this is what doesn't, this is why. And now you add that to your repertoire, you add it to your picture. And I think that's the thing that I really enjoy doing. I really enjoy connecting, but also people and just what works, like what works with what and in what way. That really it gets me excited.
Yeah, that's not easy to do. To be creative with technical frameworks is really challenging. But yeah, I've seen you connect a lot of things together. So also your network is crazy powerful. I didn't like David Carter is like a node that just branched like crazy. I had no idea I was going to meet as many people through David. But
He's a unicorn. He's a unicorn for sure. But I did, yeah, that's true. Like when we were traveling the world, we said, okay, let's just travel to the places where I know people, and like and we literally traveled through like 30 countries. And I was like, wait, dude, what? Like I know so many people in the world. It's crazy. I didn't even realize. It's amazing. It feels great. You just connect with people, and then you enjoy each other's company. I really like when people enjoy each other's company. That's a thing that makes me very happy. So
sounds like a connector, definitely.
Yeah, it's like if I'm in a room, I can kind of feel the if it's over a certain amount of people, my thing shuts down. Like I don't care. But if it's a certain amount of people that I can track, like if it's 15 people, I feel what the dynamic of the group is, and I always have to make sure that there's like an equilibrium, like everybody are kind of like enjoying it, and there's a.
Have you read anything about people that are connectors?
No.
Oh yeah, there's some great books out there. I'll send you some links or some great information about. Yeah, certain individuals are just absolute connectors.
Yeah, maybe. That's definitely the connection of what works with what is a very natural, like this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. I usually know what people would get along with one another. Sometimes I'm wrong, but for the most part I'm not. And sometimes it's surprising. Sometimes it's surprising, like it's a connection that you wouldn't expect to work, but somehow it's clear to me that they will definitely click, because there's like something completes one another. It's almost like a circuit.
Yeah, your BS meter is pretty good. You called out Billy Carson and Terrence Howard, right?
I mean, that was right on the surface. That was not hard. Yeah, I'm giving you one more right now, which is, and I will stand behind it, which is what's his face?
Stephen Greer.
Yeah, 100%, no question about it. Like I actually had somebody who I really it's gonna fall flat because you don't know the person, so it's not really gonna hold. Like it's not gonna sound valuable, but it's just someone that is one of these people that is just like very wholesome. So you kind of it's one of these people that he's a really good barometer of like getting like good people and not such good people. And he met Greer because they were doing some kind of a big business thing, and he met him, and then he texted me and he asked me like, hey, what do you think about Greer? I was like, I didn't. Again, I don't have a lot of writing on this. I'm not rah-rahing against him, but it's just so clear to me that he's full of it. Then I'm like, meh. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. It's like,
what about Bob Lazar?
I don't know. He's a hard one. I catch him sometimes in instances where I'm like, but something tells me that there's something sincere there. There's like a very deep hurt from something. He's a tough one. I don't know, but I believe him. I don't know why, but yeah, I believe him.
He's one that I believe, but everything tells me that he's probably not telling it. I don't know. It's so hard for me. I'm on the fence with him, but
yeah, he's a tough one to read for sure. Corbell, I don't understand how people like. He's just.
He's a bad actor.
No,
Okay.
man. No. Bad actor is a strong word. No. I don't think he's a bad actor. Bad actor means like somebody who's like malicious or like no, not at all. It's just I don't know. There's something there. There's so he's too excited, which is always kind of like there's nothing wrong with being excited, but it's like it's excited where it doesn't belong, right?
And Elizondo, Luis Elizondo.
There was one interview with him that I saw something very sincere in him, and since then I wasn't sure about him, but then after that interview, actually with in the Toe podcast, where he really was like he was asked point blank about like, okay, what is it that why do you think it's not being revealed and all of that, and there was like this very heavy look where he said like, yeah, because I think people would turn to religion and like it would be very difficult for them to absorb that. And I'm obviously paraphrasing, but there was the way that he did it. It was so heavy, and it was like a very real human emotion around that I knew that either he's a tremendous actor or that was a very real emotion. So I would say yes. But I might disappoint you guys with the guy that everybody told me there's to watch with the egg. No. He's a plant, like 100% for me. Like again, it's to be super clear. Of course I can be wrong, right? So don't get all worked up. Like of course I can be wrong, but if I have to put my like no, like it's so clear. Like okay, watch the there's a clip. Did you send me that clip of him talking on Instagram?
God, I send you so many clips.
So I'll give you a few. I'm no Chase Hughes, but I the body language is very clear there. So there's like it's being asked point blank, and it's a very important distinction between him telling you a story and between the guy asking him a yes or no question about actually discovering like. So I forget what he asked him, but like it was a point blank question. So you did this and this, like yes, no. And he said yes, but look how he licks his lips right when he says that. He's like, and it was right. It's definitely a tell. And the fact that he's fidgeting constantly with his right arm, there's like so many tells there that he's like saying half truths, what he knows he's supposed to say, not supposed to say. There's so much going on there. I can't watch him as a honest one person that I can tell you that if he's full of it, then he fooled me. It's Commander Fravor. I see him as a very honest, like, very, very honest person, very kind of like commendable and honorable. So if he is full of it, he fooled me for sure. But so he went
during World War II. We had the British had they'd gotten the code. They broke the code for the Germans. Cryptography or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was the
Enigma.
Yeah, I think they call it Ultra back then, before Enigma, but whatever. But a great quote from Churchill is, "During war, truth is so precious it must be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies." I always love that one.
Interesting. Wow, that's a great quote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. So if you're asking me, is he just coming forward and just like, yeah, he just wants to report the thing? I would say no, absolutely not. There's somebody's whispering something in his ear for sure.
The other guy, Fred Baker, I think is his name, that they've been interviewing. That was the psionic guy that psionically pulls in the craft or whatever. I cannot put my finger on it, but I've seen him somewhere before. And I'm almost positive it was on like one of those other tier 1 operator, like gun range shows or whatever. I can't put my finger on it yet, but it's like, okay, that's interesting. Just whatever. Yeah.
Tim said it is funny. He said, I never met a con artist that I didn't like.
I can't stand them, actually.
They're very sleazy. No,
Dr.
but there's
Dr. Amen raises a lot of flags for my doctor friends. They hate that guy.
The one that I said that looks like looks like the devil.
Yeah.
Dude, this is like
Gentlemen?
seriously, like, are you kidding me? This is like evil in its its essence.
I love Amon.
Dude, he looks like the most evil person I've ever met in my entire life. This is crazy. Dude.
Burning purple.
No, dude, no. There's a difference between. Here's the thing. I think that what Danny was trying to do, and Danny loves him, by the way. So this is why I would never tell him anything. But I really think I'm not wrong about this. So I think what he's trying to mimic there, and especially they did it with the candles, right? Is Joe's episodes with
Duncan Trussell.
with Trussell, yeah, because Trussell has this like trickster, darker element, but he's like a pure soul. Like Duncan Trussell is a pure soul, and that guy, man, dude, oh my god, like I don't, like I said, you didn't come in the beginning of the conversation because when I was saying this, I don't think I've ever in my life employed that language. Dude, he looks evil, like evil, like not like a cutesy, like he looks like he is what's his face reincarnate, like, and also the way that he's talking about Jesus and everything. I'm like, whoa, dude, oh my god. I mean, listen, I already got your style and everything, Casey. I know that you have that darker element as well. I appreciate it. There's the shadow for sure. I have my own. But that one is like he's keeping the gates of the underworld, bro. That's not like, it's not like a cute. I've met dark people. That's a different level of something. I can't get behind that. That's too much.
What about Huberman? Andrew.
What do you? How did you jump to Huberman from that?
So okay, yeah, you're right. Well, they're kind of like in the health guru sector, but. So I embarrassingly fell for Liver King. I thought Liver King was like preaching the 14 tenets of
oh
being
my
primal.
god, no.
I was all about it, dude. I was grounding my bed. I was like touching grass. I was doing all of it. And when I found out he was on anabolic steroids, I I felt fooled. But yeah.
So Simon is saying I will text it too, but I'm already typing it in. But I will say also Simon. So I agree. He said that devil will not look what you would think he would look like. I agree with that. But he will feel what you would feel him to feel like, and he definitely feels like that. Like he doesn't. It's not the way he looks. It's there's, like I said, there's a lot of people that look weird and even look semi-evil. That's not that. There's an energy that he emanates that I'm like, bro. That's like, oh, whoa. Like, no. Like, this is whoa. I listen, I can tell you. So I was in first of all, it does, this is not usually something I talk too much about, but I grew up like in a really bad place, like a really bad place. So I met a lot of bad people. And I've been to Mexico shooting a movie, and it's the guy that one of the people we were interviewing is this artist, and the artist is kind of drawing from the shadow, like he's one of these like like sorcerers, like darker. And I walked in the house, and I felt this like wave of just and I was like, whoa. Nice. But there was like a power to it. There was like he's channeling it in a way where he definitely has like all the predispositions that you would expect that to be that, right? But I'm like, and he saw me and I saw him, and I mean, I know that side, so, and he's very in tune, and he saw me and I saw him, and we locked eyes, and he's like, and I'm like, and he's like, oh, you see me? I'm like, yeah. But then he's like, but I'm like, but it's okay. Like, it's cool. Like he's like, okay. And then we were like, cool. And it was all in a glance, but I know he knows. And I know, like we exchanged information, and he was like, okay. And then we were like, he was actually really, really cool. And we're like, he showed us around and all that stuff. But this is where it's channeled towards something that is a creation, right? in his case, what I'm seeing, and maybe this is the reason I'm feeling this like very, like, I would say ominous. There's because it seems that it really seems like he would enjoy watching people burn. Like that's what it feels like to me. It's not like I'm telling you, like it's not like a cutesy, like I'm a trickster. It's not that. So I don't know. That's my impression. The second, and it's funny because Danny told me that's like one of his most like requested guests, and I'm like, if I would watch one person, who should I watch from your interviews? And he told me him, and then I watched the thing and I was like, dude, whoa. And Danny has this streak, like he's like he it's funny because he's kind of drawn to that thing, which is very, very fascinating to me because I guess maybe because I spend so much time with that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, that's not, I don't know. It just feels like that's not the style that I want to like emanate or bring about too much. You know what I mean? Why are you laughing, by the way?
This is awesome.
Oh,
poor Dr. A.
The what?
Yeah. No, I think it's funny. I think I want to clip all of this and put it on.
Okay, great. Yeah. And just send it to him.
Tag him.
Yeah. I don't get this impression a lot. It's like strong. And
Danny's had a lot of weird people on his podcast, like all these religious like interpreters.
I know, but that one takes the cake for me. It's like
Wow.
it's here's the thing. The reason that I made this comparison right now with that artist is because Mexico is already known for that. Right? If you ever been to Mexico, you know that Mexico is known for that energy. It's what drives the country.
Yeah, the dead.
Yeah, they celebrate the death. They like it's entrenched in
yeah.
the culture, and you can feel it. And he was an exemplar of that, like that artist, right? He was like very like the blackness of the black, like it was. And you would love his art, by the way. There's some pieces that I really loved. Some pieces were a little bit too like too on the edge for me, but I enjoyed the fact that he is a true artist. Like he lives that, right? And he's not fucking around. But and he even had this like like always there's that kind of person always has this. It's almost like an archetype, and that archetype always has this like little helper running around. And he's like this little seemingly like a little trickster running around, almost like a little goblin. But then he's like a cat, right? Like it's but he's his eyes. He's this. Yeah. He's like this. Like, what is here? Like, and it's like, and I'm like, oh, I know what this is. I'm like, oh my god, like I know this so well, and because you have this in gangs, you have this like it's a very common thing, right? So then I was like, and I'm watching them. And at first, they were very, very resistant to the director because he is like this kind of like very Jewish vanilla guy, like very like just is kind of like a Larry David, like he's like like, and it was so not connecting with that whole thing, and they were like,
that's always a weirdness.
Yeah. So I actually really like my presence actually smoothened the ride because I'm like. We start talking about Castañeda, we start talking about all kinds of things, and then we kind of understood that we understand each other, and then they felt more comfortable, and that was great. And the reason that I'm emphasizing is because within Mexico, with that guy that is like an amplification of this whole thing, still, it almost feels like, and it's really hilarious because in the end it might turn out as like the nicest guy, and I'm like completely wrong about him. All possible, but my impression, and I have to be honest about it, my impression is that it's the evil for the sake of evil. Like it's that. It's not like I'm gonna create with it. I was like, no, it's like, it's like the blackness of blacks. It's like, no, man, like no, just no, no, none of that. Not connected to anything else but like destruction. And it's like And again, even in the even if your thing is to some degree shit on the Bible, or like find all these like loopholes of how the Bible is wrong about whatever, even if that's your thing, this is not the way. There's I don't know if you watched the conversation about you probably did, right? The part where I watched this clip where he talks about his relationship with Mary and that whole thing with the jizz and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
Witness My Mystery.
Yeah. And it's the way that he's saying it. It's the pleasure that he derives from basically shitting on the Lord. And there's this, you know what I mean? It's like and he literally looks like a snake talking. He's like like that. Like I'm like
sometimes like when you have a reaction like that to somebody like him, it could be perhaps this big maybe.
Sure.
It could be because you're seeing something in him that is in yourself.
No. I can tell you why not, because I made peace with that part of me. That part of me.
What I'm saying is this: is that what he's putting forth is to tear down the false religions of the world. And if you think about it, what you're doing with the project is literally bringing forth the simulation, which will confront so many people and their religions in this world. It's almost like literally.
But Danny's version of it, you feel like it unites everything, kind of almost. But
I don't know, to the religious people, I think it's going to be
you'll be surprised how many people that, if you frame it correctly, for them, no, it absolutely speaks, because the deeper Jewish traditions, the deeper Christian traditions, they're totally on board with the simulation. God is simulating this reality like he simulates any other realities. I am telling you that what I see, again, with the full disclaimer that I'm just a person just like you, and I can be absolutely wrong about him. And this is why I immediately kind of stopped you, is because it's like the furthest thing from like that part of me. My shadow is very well integrated. That part of me had its expression in a very not productive way. I was a very violent kid, and I got into a lot of trouble because of it. And I found a way to make peace with the rage, right? So my monster is rage. I'm very aware of it. If I get into that mode, people go to hospitals. And I learned over time that, because it was the thing that basically made me feel very alone. I remember there was a moment that it literally broke me, because I discovered that my sister was afraid to tell me that she's now the person who's now her incredible, wonderful husband for 15 years. And he's one of my favorite people. She was afraid to tell me she was dating him. And when I discovered that, I was like, wait, what did you think is going? I was like, who am I? Like, who? Like it was such a shock for me, because I never, like, I had a reputation, right? But I didn't know, like, in my mind, it was just respect, but it was fear. And that hurt me so deeply. I remember that was probably the most painful moment in my life, because she's literally my favorite person. So, and that's when kind of started the catalyst for like my big change, when I started like looking into psychedelics more as a therapeutic thing. And I started looking into it more like, like what can I do to not, come across, I had no idea. Like, and then later, as I was trying to also kind of get out of this, whatever expression that I created out of myself, I had other instances where like close friends would tell me like, hey, like literally my friend pulled me to the side and he said, hey, you know that when you talk to people, they're scared of you, right? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, because you look like a mobster who's threatening them. Because I used to talk, this is why, and I like you, I would not be recognizable to you 20 years ago. Just, you would not recognize me. And I when I started going into like the meditation and like all that other things, and I saw the steps of progression and changes in me, and how difficult it is kind of like, remove that from the natural course of your behavior. I also realized it's a funny maybe movie to quote in context like this, but I thought it was one of the most brilliant lines in cinema, from Doctor Strange.
Oh, I love that movie.
Right, and then when he stands with her, with the whatever his teacher, and he asks her about the demons, and he says, "How do you eradicate the demons?" And she said, "Eradicate them? You don't eradicate them. You live above them. You can't eradicate them." And that I saw that in action. You can't eradicate them. It's always there. It's always there forever. It's part of reality. That's the dark side of reality. There's nothing you can do about it. And you're not supposed to try and eradicate it. Again, Carl Jung, the idea of the shadow, it's all so profound. But when I saw it in action, I said, okay, well, this is all nice philosophically, but in action, how do I channel that thing that I created to protect me? Because that was my protection. I was abused as a kid, and I lashed out. And when I lashed out, and I noticed that I can be the perpetrator, I was like, oh, that feels very liberating. I like it. I'll be in control. And that control is, there's always a price. That control for that rage that protects you is that you're now a prisoner of it, right? And now you're alone because you alienate people, and now your sister is afraid of you. So, or afraid of what you might do to somebody she's dating, which is insane to me. And then what I realize is that there's always ways to channel the energy in a way that is more productive. So I again, I still have, like, I do sometimes get annoyed, or like, and there's still like remnants of that, and people who watch the live probably experienced it a couple of times where I was like, somebody really annoys me, but like that part of me that definitely is like not here anymore. Like that's not a possibility. Like unless somebody that I really love is threatened, like in a real way, okay, that's useful. Let's go. But that's not a possibility in my life anymore.
Yeah,
However,
successfully integrated it.
But the way I integrated it is I basically transformed it to assertiveness. So then my presence is such that if I'm in control, not if I'm like all like, lambasted or like too tired or whatever it is, but if I'm in like good control, I can give somebody a glance, they will stop doing whatever it is that they're doing immediately. And that's a good tool, like because sometimes people like overstep other people's boundaries, and I like that I don't need to do much more than that, right? Yeah. So, but it maybe took me like 15 years of like really trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing. The reason I'm telling you all this is why I understand the mentality of the dark. I understand it. I get it. It's in me. And I'm aware of it. What I'm seeing there, and again, full disclosure, I can be absolutely wrong, can be the nicest guy. What I saw in the look, in the energy, in the satisfaction that he was getting, specifically about saying the things he was saying, he was enjoying destroying. He's not educating. He's enjoying to destroy. That is a very different kind of operation. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and he hasn't done psychedelics yet either, so.
I don't know. He never done psychedelics?
No.
Oh, well, I want to see what I want to see what comes out. I want to see what comes out. This is yeah. Simon hates typing. Wait, Simon said a lot of things and I'm ignoring him. Hold on. I wasn't ignoring you. I was just like in my Nico I never heard Nico like
No, actually I thought you were talking about Dr. Amen, like
Wait.
The brain imaging guy on TikTok.
That's amazing. Okay, that's why you're laughing. That's incredible.
He looks like a demon. Yeah, you're right.
Wait, I gotta see who you're talking about. No, hold on. TikTok. Dr. Amen. That's amazing. Because it sounds the same. That's amazing. No, he looks like a nice guy. That's hilarious.
Now that I'm seeing this guy, yeah, you're totally right. This dude looks straight evil.
No.
What's his name again? Hillman? Even his name, bro. Like, his name sounds like hell. Like
Hillman. Yeah.
Hillman. No, man. Again, we're all people. I give it, but the feeling is so strong. I'm like, dude. But is it? Wait, Doctor, the one that? Well, okay, so Hillman. What's the name of the other one?
Amen.
It sounds the same to me. Come on.
Like
So,
A-M-E-N?
yeah, Amen.
Yeah,
He's the one.
Yeah.
He's the one that Billy Carson just went to cry on the show. No.
So this guy, Dr. Amen, the brain imaging guy, he looks like Joe from Heaven's Gate, which is evil.
This is yeah. You know what? Funny. No, listen. I really enjoy. Here's the thing. I really enjoy darkness when it's really well articulated. There's something really beautiful about that. One of my favorite characters of all time in shows is what's his name? He's a tremendous actor. Have you ever seen Lost?
Yeah.
So what's his name?
Blacklist or something like that.
No, the guy who basically always gets his way. Like he manages to manipulate everybody.
Oh God, yeah.
What's his name?
I can't remember. Yeah,
but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the bald guy.
Yeah, no. That's the
con man.
Yeah.
Sawyer.
No, bro. Hold on, I'll tell you. He made the show, bro. Hold on, I'll tell you.
Come on, Freckles. Long con, short con guy.
No. They're boring. Hold on, Lost cast. Hold on. Michael Emerson played him. Ben Linus.
Oh yeah.
Ben Linus, bro. That's the character. Right. Wow. That's amazing. Like he nailed it. That's darkness, man. That's and yet it's like twisted so perfectly because it's like very well articulated. It's really well done. I don't enjoy darkness for the sake of darkness. That's not man. Yeah. It's like an empty thing. But I get it, man. I mean, the style again. Danny loves him. Like it's his favorite guest by far. So who am I to say, right? But it's funny because Danny has this element where he's like, he even said I think in our interview he said that too. Is that his biggest fear, is to meet the devil.
Yeah.
And I said, wait, you mean like the devil? Or you mean like he's like, no, like what it represents. I'm like, are you sure?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
Danny worships the devil?
No. I'm saying that he has this weird. You know how we're attracted to the thing we're afraid of the most? It's kind of like this. So he has that with that element, with that like demonic thing. He's like, that's his biggest fear. He says this openly. And but it's also the thing that you can see is kind of like a moth to a flame. He's like, Anyways, I what I definitely didn't know today when I woke up is that we're going to be talking about evil. That's awesome. Anyways, fine. Well, we spent an hour on this. What is the end? Oh, Simon is saying, what is the Antichrist? Hold on. Simon said a lot of things, and Simon says very interesting things. I know everybody are chiming in. I hope you guys are okay with me sometimes just kind of like going on tangents, and then it's definitely very difficult for me to follow what you guys are saying.
So the first clip of Eamon Hillman on YouTube says, Jesus Christ used children as drugs. This dude's crazy.
Yeah, he's insane, bro. It's like
Okay, wait. So what he has uncovered is actually fascinating. It's a long subject, but what he's uncovered is that in ancient time, my wife's laughing hysterically in the background.
Because she thinks like what I think.
Well, yeah, exactly. What he has discovered is that in ancient times, they would use the human body as a pharmacy. So if you put snake venoms and all these other wild things into your body over time, you create antibodies that would create drugs. basically. So
oh, that's why Andrew Gallimore was commenting on the snake venom today on X.
But yeah, so that's what it's all about, is that back then they would use the human body as pharmacies and to go to a place which is very, the DMT, the molecule space. That's where they would go. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, and again, and Simon says he also says Ammon is beautiful. I guess we have different definitions of beautiful. To understand art that is pain. I can understand his pain. Believe me, I understand pain. It's just that I also know it's possible to overcome it, and I know it's possible to stop enjoying the smashing of things. And I think he never got there. He is one of the only people alive who can commend true Greek. I don't know how this is relevant. I mean, nice, but it's nice to see how far down the rabbit hole this leads with Danny and his perspective. Yeah. I mean, you should face your fears. Sure. What is the Antichrist? I don't know. Is there a difference? I don't even know. Is there a difference with the Antichrist and the devil?
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Well, I mean,
is it like Antichrist is basically literally the opposite of Jesus? He's like the devil reincarnated, like literally the kind of like God is Jesus, but the opposite. Like is that what it is?
It depends on where you're looking from, but
let's say from here, right here. I'm looking from right here.
So, like, yeah, an antichrist. I don't know.
Wait, Ebony, what water to whom? Like, my voice is okay. No, Ebony puts me glasses of water again. Is well studied subject like Galen and the illusion mysteries of science. Sure, you might be very educated. I'm not debating that. Definition of Christ. I don't think Christ requires a definition. Christ is Christ. It's Jesus Christ, right? We know what that is.
Amon's, through his education, what his big thing is that the word Christos in ancient times didn't mean a person. What it meant was to Christ somebody by putting this burning purple into them, whether it's through the eyes or any other opening in your body, and it'd bring about a death state. Then they would give you an antidote to bring you out of it, and it was a profound psychedelic experience to Christ somebody. That's his big revelation, basically.
Yeah, so I can tell you guys that, like people say, read the Great Controversy. Here's the thing. Because I didn't come from a religious background, that element, I didn't exist in relationship to it, right? So I don't have, I was saying this yesterday in the live as well, that, by the way, we have some answers here. Amanda saying, devil is the fallen angel. Oh, I knew that. Antichrist is the bringer of apocalypse. I didn't know that. And then Lucifer bringer of light. I did hear that. That's actually a very interesting whole. There's a book that somebody I met wrote called Shine by Rajinder. Very interesting, in which a guy meets the devil, and then he has a conversation with him the whole book, and the devil's like, well, you want me to just tell you all the information, all the answers? Is like, sure. And then it's a very interesting conversation. I highly recommend it. Very interesting book called Shine. And which there's a really interesting line in the book where he says, would you like to know the answers? And he says, yes. He's like, well, is there a price? He said, of course there is. He says, what do I have to pay? He says, you have to pay attention. I thought it was very profound. So my personal trajectory with that whole world of Jesus Christ simply doesn't exist in my system. Because of that, I'm very neutral. I don't, like in the American culture, even if you're born, this is what I was saying yesterday, so I'm kind of reiterating. And even if you were born secular, you still exist in relationship with Jesus Christ, because the system kind of talks about it a lot. So you either reject it, indifferent to it, love it, but there's something about it that is in relationship to you, or you in relationship to it. For me, that was not the case. I was born in Russia. not like it was never even a thing, right? And so it's just a very secular kind of. The reason I'm saying it is because I know that what I was shown has nothing to do with my predispensations. Do with it what you will, but the only thing that I see my my main value in the hyperspace is that I report honestly. I would never tell you something that I didn't actually see, and if it wasn't like a conviction thing, then I would never even utter it. Like I would only say it if I think there's like an importance to it. I think when I was shown that, it was important. And what I was shown is that Jesus Christ is real. He is real. He existed. Everything happened. He got resurrected, and he is responsible for the fact that you have your salvation. And now, again, I don't have that in my system, but I saw it, and the only thing I could do is the same thing that I had to do with the simulation thing, which I was never into it. I didn't care. It was not a thing. And then that's what I was shown. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to accept it. So in this case, I would say the same thing. I guess I have to accept it. And
one thing that I noticed, I saw The Matrix a couple of nights ago, and that's still the best movie ever. But
probably
the concept of Jesus Christ is in all of the best movies ever, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's like a fundamental storyline that resonates with everyone. So there's something interesting there. Some archetypes.
But I'm saying more than that. I'm saying that like straightforwardly, not as a metaphor, not as a concept or an archetype. I'm saying Jesus Christ is real. Christians are right, is what I'm saying. So like, I don't know what to do with that, but I have to tell you because that's what I was shown. And what I do is I report honestly from the space. So it was part of a larger picture. So there was more things happening aside of that. But the fact is that there is, or the way that I was shown, is that there is this system of checks and balances that happens. And according to your signature, you will end up in a particular place if you're not anchored by a physical body. So the second you leave the physical body, you immediately drift into whatever your signature is. And if your signature is one of a certain kind, you will end up in a place where that belongs. It's not even it's just kind of like the natural course of things. So in order for you to end up in the right place, you need to have a certain kind of a signature. So because people are very fallible and most people are incapable of living a certain kind of life that will land them in the right place, God sent like a signature of himself through a physical representation that took up on itself the what needs to happen so you don't have to do that. And the only price you pay is the acknowledgement that this loving act was done for you. That's the only currency. You don't have to do anything else. And it sounds almost like a cheat. And I agree with you that if you just look at it from like the most, simple Sam Harrison perspective, it's absurd. It's like, oh, well, then I will just cheat, steal, and kill all my life. And then last second, I'll just accept Jesus Christ. Who cares, right? Well, yeah, but you have to kind of like really, really, really accept it, which would mean that there's a part of you that will kind of know what you've done and where, like there's a part of you that always registers and knows, and it's almost like you're going to be judging yourself. So there's almost like a fail-safe system. So now, does this mean that this actually happens? I don't know. But I do know that usually they don't show me things for no reason. And that was part of kind of like the tapestry that I was shown. And again, I'll be fully honest with you, I don't know what to do with that. Because that was not a...
Did you see Lucifer as well?
No. Oh, I did see what you would call, I guess, the devil. And he was part of the gods. He's one of the gods. There's like a whole chain of gods, and he's one of them.
I would say it comes down to the console is a very powerful tool.
It's not the console. That was not part of the console. Yeah. So the thing there is that, right, so like this was shown to me, right? So it means it's probably not really people. I'm sure that it speaks to everybody in whatever language they understand. It's not like I'm not which even though for some reason some reporters insist of calling me that, I'm not a prophet. I'm not here to say what I think that I know will happen in the future. I'm telling you what I know about the code stuff, and because that's something you can replicate and see. But I'm not here to tell you that I know what's going to happen in the future or the future of humanity or of any of this stuff. I have strong intuitions. I can talk about them, but I'm not claiming to know any like concrete information. So, but the question is, why was this shown to me? To me, like that's a question for me. Like, why was this shown to me? And I think it's because I have this insistence of just like I really want to know the full picture. So there was like, hey, okay, here's the picture. Like, what are you gonna do with that? It's almost like make fun. It was almost to make fun of how absurd my request is. It's like, okay, sure, here it is. Now what? What do you do with that? But I think it's something probably a little bit more profound than that, because it showed me that there's always this choice between how you live your life. And you can believe whatever you want and you can do whatever you want. But in the end of the day, there is this internal component of you that registers your actions, that you know it's there and it knows what the real thing is. So every time you override it, you have to do a lot of work to override it. And every time we do something that is, I guess what you would call in the biblical language, truly sinful, like truly, like not out of a childish perspective where you just don't know any better. The definition of a real sin is that when you know it's wrong and then you still do it, that's different than not realizing it's that wrong, right? And this is why I guess ignorance is bliss, is because you don't know. So this is, I think, the deepest idea about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's not the tree of knowledge, it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because the second you're aware of what is good and what is evil, now you're responsible for whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And God was trying to protect them from not knowing that. You don't need to know, just enjoy whatever it is. And I can't shake off the feeling that there's something that is happening within the simulation that we're in that has to do with these checks and balances that does come to some kind of a fruition. So this is why I keep saying to everybody that even though I still see myself actually as a pretty secular person, because I do see there's a larger picture that I don't quite fully understand, I would err on the side of caution and just be a good person. Just, it's not that hard. Like there's the attempt to hurt others or just neglect in a way that is hurtful, it requires effort. And to the extent to which we lash out against whatever it is, I was very much like that. Like authority is, like I hate authority, right? And the lashing out was very strong there. And I feel like a lot of us, when I hear people kind of react to the whole like, oh, the Bible was all bullshit, blah, 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 it's usually come from like anger, and it comes from the person is unhappy. Okay. And there's a lashing out there, and it's like, it's almost like venom, right? And that is a signature that is in you. And that's what it is. It's like, that's the navigational system. A happy person doesn't talk like that. Even if they think that something is wrong, or like they don't talk like that. It's not an impulse that they have. And I guess maybe I'm starting to see a little bit more the value of what a wholesome life is. Like what it really, I'm looking at it more from like a Buddhistic perspective, because I don't like having a boss. I think really it's what it comes down to. But even there, you can't escape the fact that when you meditate enough, you understand what the ethical components of life are, because you simply know that there's a universal law that states that when you do a certain action in a particular way, if it has this negative, sinful signature, it will make you feel a certain way, and it doesn't feel good. And for the most part, we drown that signal. We have a little whiskey, we do whatever, we drown it, but we know. And that knowing is always there, and it never goes away. And I think that's, in the end of the day, with all the stuff that we say to one another. Oh, where's my battery, baby? Do you know? Baby? You know what my batteries disappearing on me? No, I don't think so. Well, I think it's a. Oh, it's right here, right in front of me. Hold on. We lost TikTok. I didn't even realize there was no battery. Probably shut down. Well, nope. That's the end of that live. So we just have us. So yeah. So the final thought on that is that I think ultimately it's not that difficult to lead a decent life, and I do think that at this point, and I think because a lot of the stuff that people are talking about in terms of some sort of vindication, maybe over like their opinions over other people's opinions, which I think is the thing that gets us in trouble in the end. I think ultimately,
I speak to you this morning in an hour of anguish.
Dr. Trump. Hold on, let me see if I can jump back on the live. I don't think so. Resume. Oh my God, it allowed us. It allowed us to resume for one more second of this battery. We're back. So yeah, so I will say a couple more words because the battery basically died on us, and I think maybe it's a good time to adjourn. I'll let you guys say a couple of words before we go, of course. But just the final word I would say on this is that I think ultimately the truth is that as much as we exchange ideas and as much as we kind of talk about these things, no matter how cavalier we are about what we're sure of, when you go to sleep at night, like that moment with yourself, I think we know a lot more about what's right and what's wrong than we tend to admit. That's all I would say. I think it's there. And I think most people just like to ignore it. But for all intents and purposes, if you are the ultimate overarching consciousness of everything, and you know that there's some kind of a balance to things and certain actions lead to certain outcomes reliably, then you would set up a system to help communicate the fact that certain actions end up in a certain place reliably throughout the levels. And maybe one of these ways of communication would be how we would perceive religion nowadays. And I said this yesterday in the live. I used to think, even though I didn't really care truly, but I was much more in Sam Harris's camp, which is like, there's no God, there's no reason to think there's a God. And I genuinely thought that. And there was no reason for me to think anything else. But because I know now that there's at least insectoids right outside of, like, I know that. So there's more. There's no reason to believe that it stops at some point, and these conscious levels that keep going up. So you would have some kind of a system of checks and balances. If maybe it's for deterrence only. I don't know. I'm not pretending to be some kind of a prophet here. I am just telling you that there has to be some kind of a system that kind of checks and balances. What it really is, how it really operates, what is the actual final word on that? Like, is it really that you get to, like, go to certain very unpleasant places, or is it more kind of like a deterrent? I don't know, but I think it's worth. Also, because it feels better. It feels better. It feels better to live a life where you're nice to other people and you love people versus have all kinds of negative emotions towards other people, especially people you never met. Anyways, I think that's my spiel on that. What did you guys want to say? Give you the final words.
Go, Nico, go.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think, well, first, I think it's non-scientific to say there is no God. So I don't understand the atheist perspective. I think it's a very definitive, I think it's a very non-scientific stance to say there is no God, because there is no evidence, I guess. There's no, like, tangible evidence. But I think that when you leave that framework, it feels like there definitely is. So I don't know. I'm a big believer in God, but I'm allergic to this, like, organized kind of game of telephone with the word of God kind of stuff. I just kind of operate on my own intuition and interpretation, and it's a lot of what you said, right? It's just if you look at the teachings of Christ, I think it's pretty straightforward how to interpret the Bible or Christianity. But
I will say, and this is something that that's the thing I forgot that I wanted to add from last night, which is I do see now more how it is somewhat of a good system that can help a lot of people that might not be able to put in the work all by themselves. I can see how Christianity can be, like organized Christianity can be a good tool for a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily put in the work by themselves to live a life that is more wholesome. I do see that. And like I said yesterday, there is a lot that went wrong with doing terrible things in the name of religion, but I do think that people just do that in general, in the name of whatever. If I see the modern version of most of what I see Christians say, I'm totally behind it. Totally behind it. It's community, and like the second you start going and like preaching, that's a different story. But and threatening everybody with hell, that's a different story. But if it's just the message of, hey, love thy neighbor as thyself, I think that's I mean, what like I don't know how you can ever argue against that kind of a way of appropriating yourself in the world.
Casey, your turn.
I just think that these conversations are going to get really interesting as times get really interesting. So to be continued.
To be continued.
Yeah.
And not to confuse with Dr. Amen. It's amazing. That is amazing. Incredible. All right, guys. Well, it's usually not my topic of conversation, but sometimes it's fun to dive into these. I'll do the regular spiel. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. If you want to follow me across platforms, it'll be first of all, if you guys want to follow my beautiful co-hosts tonight, Nico McKay, NIKOMACKAY, and Casey, whose handle is CAW_AHA. Casey is also the person who brings you a lot of our experiments live with the magnets, without the magnets, in all kinds of ways. People love this, so I appreciate you, brother. And also, feel free to join our Discord, which you can find a link to on our YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel, which is Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts. My other platforms are Danny Goller, which is TikTok and Instagram, Goller Danny on X, and LaserX83 on Twitch. Again, YouTube is the thing I'm promoting the most at the moment because most of my content lives there. So if you're on any other platform, I would highly encourage you to go and check out YouTube, Dango Thoughts. You can also join the membership program, which allows you to have Zoom calls with me and weekly lives for members only outside of the daily lives, early access to all the content I'm putting out, and private stuff about my life that will start coming out in February that will only live on YouTube members, nowhere else. What else? That's it. We're working on the film, as you guys know, and yes, we were funded, but we're still not quite at the final mark of what we need, so we're still crowdfunding. So if you feel that you have the capability, feel free to donate, receive with gratitude if you can, and you can find that either in the link tree in the description on TikTok, or you can watch the trailer on Dango Thoughts on YouTube, and the GoFundMe page, which also Ebony, I see that she posted right there. Thank you so much. Is right in the description of the video. Oh, and if you want to know more about the project in general, you can go to codeofreality.com, codeofreality.com, and you will get all the information about what is happening. We're working on a new website, which will be hopefully operational soon, and a lot of great things to come. I deeply appreciate all the members that already joined, the people that are donating their time and their hard-won money to help the project. Ebony and Ben and Chris and Nico, thank you so much for doing everything you guys are doing. Casey, for the time that you're donating and your beautiful heart and mind. Simon and all the other people that are always beautifully pushing back against my ideas in a way that I really enjoy. Thank you, everybody. Dimitri, Tim, Ebony, I mentioned, of course. Daniel, one of my most regular listeners, really enjoy my conversations with you. And really everybody who are showing up here on a regular basis and making this community what it is. I really, really deeply grateful for all of this. That's it, I think, for tonight. Peace and love, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao. Ciao, bambinos. Have a good night.